episode, we saw the very origins of the Assyrian state and more or less their debut on the world stage during the time of King Shamsi I. Though there were periods of foreign influence and domination after this period, by around the 1360s BCE, Assyria had managed to not only become independent, but also a key power broker in the region. This was in part due to rival kingdoms, most notably that of the Mittanni, collapsing on their northern borders, and the Assyrians taking part of the spoils. I personally believe that it was also due to the foresighted rulers that the Assyrians were blessed to have had. Of course, there were occasional setbacks, but these overall didn't stop the Assyrian juggernaut from steamrolling over ancient Mesopotamia and the Middle East. There were other states that arose and fell, but few matched Assyria in its sustained increase of territory, wealth, and influence. Most scholars seem to agree that it is the Assyrian king Ashur-uballit to whom we can credit for founding what eventually became the Assyrian Empire. Now, we don't really have a lot of details about how this occurred, but we do know about his campaigns from references to them in the writings of his descendants. These indicate that he expanded Assyria's borders to the north. This was actually a pretty logical thing to do for several reasons. One was that with Mitanni control of these regions gone, there was land for the taking. Another and perhaps more important reason was that these mountainous regions were the home to fierce hill tribes that posed a great threat to Assyria's northern borders. In addition, these areas were abundant in natural resources such as metals, namely tin and iron, semi-precious stones, and timber. And the lowlands of these regions were ideal for breeding horses and also farming. It was not only in the north that Assyria's influence spread, but also southward to the very heart of the cradle of civilization, southern Mesopotamia. Specifically, I'm talking about Babylonia, which in the mid-1300s BCE was ruled by a Kassite dynasty originally from the Zagros Mountains. While Ashur-uballit influenced local Babylonian politics, including the succession of the Babylonian throne, his son, Adad-nirari I, who ruled from 1329 to 1320 BCE, went to war with and soundly defeated a Babylonian army at a battle about 35 kilometers southwest of the city of Erbil. A document attributed to Adad-nirari has been found which describes him as one who widened the borders and boundaries of Assyria. His son, Arik-den-ili, did the same, but seems to have done so only after repelling invading armies that had thrust as far into the Assyrian heartland as Nineveh. It is likely that these encounters were with the Gutians, a mountain people who were both feared and reviled by the peoples of Mesopotamia as being uncultured savages. With Assyria's borders firmly established, the next great period of expansion came under King Adad-narari I. Some scholars consider him to be the real founder of the Assyrian Empire, but that of course depends on your point of view. Let's go over his life and accomplishments, and then maybe you can decide if this is true or not. Adad-narari described himself as, and I quote, defeater of the ferocious ones, the hordes of Kassites, the Gutians, the Lulumians, and the Subarians, end of quote. The Kassites, Gutians, and Lulumians were from the mountainous regions to the north and east of Assyria, while the Kassite stronghold at the time was in Babylonia to the south. He was also able to push around Assyria's once feared northern rival, the Mittanni, also known as the HIttites. Adad-narari claimed the Mittanni kingdom to be within his sphere of influence. When the king of the Mittanni refused to acquiesce, he was arrested, brought to Ashur, forced to pledge an oath of allegiance to Adad-narari, and to pay a hefty annual tribute. This worked for only so long, and eventually the HIttites backed out of their forced commitments and asked the Hittites to support them. Not wanting to get involved in someone else's squabbles and having no real love for the Mittanni, the Hittites remained neutral, which only emboldened Adad-narari and allowed him to annex the Mittanni kingdom to Assyria's growing empire. Neutrality, though, didn't mean friendship. When Adad-narari made political overtures to the powerful Hittite king and spoke of their brotherhood, he was quickly rebuffed, with the Hittite king reportedly responding, and I quote, "Why should I write to you about brotherhood? Were you and I born of the same mother?" End of quote. The Assyrians and the Hittites were neighbors, not friends. In the south, the Assyrians and the Babylonians constantly fought with each other to define their respective southern and northern borders. Militarily, the Assyrians ended up being the stronger of the two and were able to dictate the final border being along the Diyala River. However, in terms of the cultural war, the Babylonians seem to have had the upper hand. It was at this time that Babylonian deities and literature were becoming extremely common in Assyria, something that the Assyrians would later take pride in preserving for centuries to come. Once they were dominant over the Middle East, the Assyrians saw themselves as the preservers of Mesopotamian, primarily Babylonian culture, art, and science. Adad-narari's son, Shalmanesar I, took over in 1274 BCE, and it is during this time that we meet, or you could say here, of another great people that would for centuries prove to be a thorn in the side of the Assyrians. These were the Uruatri, also known as Urartu. Though eventually forming into a formidable kingdom, in Shalmaneser's day, they were a large tribal confederation in what today is are parts of southwestern Turkey and Armenia. In documents and inscriptions that have been uncovered, Shalmaneser states that he attacked the Urarti because they rebelled against him, meaning that, at least in his eyes, they were his subjects. What's more likely, though, is that they were pushing southwards into Assyria's newly conquered territories. Shalmaneser probably saw them as a potential threat to his fluid northern border and decided to freeze their advance before it became a problem. He claims to have destroyed over 50 of their settlements, which could have been anything really from small villages to what in those days might have been considered a major town or city. We don't know for sure because he hasn't actually named the towns or cities that he destroyed. The Uruatri weren't his only concern. Shalmaneser also had to deal with the HIttites, whose rebellious king, Shatara, was supposed to be a sworn vassal. Unlike during the reign of Adad-narari, the king of HIttites had assistance from both the Hittites and another people known as the Aklamu. These people are often identified as an early group of Aramaean settlers to the region. This time around, the Hittite king not only offered the HIttites military assistance, but he also put economic sanctions on Assyria, forbidding the people under his control from engaging in commerce with them. In the end, though, Shalmaneser was able to put the HIttites king and his supporters in line, consolidating his hold on their territory and proving to the Hittites and others in the region that he was a force to be reckoned with. Even the Hittite king had a newfound respect for Assyria. At least in correspondence between Shalmaneser and himself, he called Shalmaneser his brother. That's definitely an upgrade from a few decades before. All of these things, though, came at a price, especially to those kingdoms who Shalmaneser had vanquished. According to records, Shalmaneser himself claims to have blinded 14,400 enemy prisoners in one eye. This was done both to punish them, as well as to enable them to work as slaves. A sort of cruel pragmatist, he was also one of the first Assyrian rulers to deport his defeated enemies to lands foreign to them so that they could be used as cheap labor. I guess this is arguably better than simply slaughtering them all, a practice which was commonplace in the Near East. Still, it's pretty cruel. Without a doubt, Shalmaneser's exploits gave him and the Assyrians in general a renewed sense of confidence, with the Assyrian king thinking of himself as having a divine mandate to rule the world. Even though in the Assyrian mind the god Ashur was the true king of the world, Shalmaneser I gave himself the title Shepherd of the Assembly of Human Settlements. Indeed, things were going really well for the Assyrians, militarily, economically, and even culturally. And this would continue under Shalmaneser's successor, Tukulti-Ninurta I. We'll continue with him in the next episode. Stay tuned. Thanks for stopping by the channel. I hope to have some more updates for you on Assyrian and other history quite soon. Take care and please subscribe.